Hey guys, it's your girl Katrina, and we got to get into the Housewives of Beverly Hills from this past week, okay? There's so much to impact this episode, but let's first start with Amanda, right? Amanda still seems to be clueless as to why people don't take her seriously and why they don't seem to really jive with her. What she doesn't realize is it's her own fault, right? She came onto the scene constantly bragging about like how much money she has, how much she spends on things, and like whenever somebody would make a comment, she always felt the need to one up them. And that's just not appealing to most people. And I don't know if she feels like she has to be that way around them to try to validate herself around them. But she got to realize a lot of these women have been there, done that. If you don't see the Kathy Hilton and Kyle Richards and Jennifer Tilly going around bragging about their money, and we know that they have more money than she has, why does she feel the need to do it? So I don't know if it's like she feels like this is her way to get in with this group, but it's not working. Because the problem is not only does she brag, but she brags at the most random times. For example, when they were back in Sedona and everybody was commenting on how they like the crystals on the table. And what did she do? Oh, well, I spent $10,000 on crystals at one time. Okay, girl, like what do you want us to do with that? That's just real random. I mean, they all talk about money, but they talk about it in ways that make sense for her. She would just blurt stuff out, and it just doesn't make any sense, and it just makes it hard for people to really like take to her. But here's the bigger problem with Amanda. Amanda does not do a good job explaining what she actually does for a living. When the women flat out ask her, hey, what do you do? All she does is list out all the different courses she has, but she doesn't even talk about really what the courses are about. How are you going to sell yourself if you can't tell people what you do? I feel like I can do a video and explaining what Amanda allegedly does much better than she can. All she has to do is just tell people, hey, I'm a manifestation expert that teaches people how to change their mindset. Bottom line, that's it. I think that's simple enough to understand, but she makes it so much harder than what it is. So that's the first element of that. But then not only that, it's also the way she talks about manifesting, right? She talks about manifesting like it's this woo-woo thing that just happens just all out the blue. And that's really not true, not if you really understand how manifesting works. So that's another reason why they don't believe it, because she makes it seem like it's all magic and the money just landed in her lap and she manifested it all. And that's not really how manifesting works. So I think that's the reason why people are scratching their head. Like right now, Bose thinks she's a scam artist. When in all reality, both may not understand either what manifesting is really about. But again, it's up to Amanda to educate people, or at least give people a glimpse to understand what manifestation really is. And she's doing a poor job at that. So that's why they don't trust her. And that's why they look at her sideways, okay? So let's talk about a couple of comments that were made, right? Because when she's talking to her husband, she's like, her husband is kind of alluding to the fact that they might be jealous of her because she's successful. She talks about how she's successful and how she didn't have to depend on man to have her success. But she's not wrong, right? She did build her company on her own. But are they really jealous of her, though? I don't know. I don't know if I would say that they're jealous of her, because like I said, they all have been there, done that. But I will say she's not wrong about some of the stuff that she said, though, because if we're being honest, Dorit is the one who admitted that she has no idea where her finances, no idea about the finances, but PK took care of everything. So Amanda wasn't wrong in the after show when she said that you should never be in that position, because she's right. You should always know where the money is, even if you're not the main provider, right? So I think Erika, Dorit, and Kyle got defensive a little bit in the after show because they're all in situations where somebody else was providing for them. And you know what? If we're being honest, it didn't work out well for Erika and Dorit, right? Because they put their all into their spouses, and now they have nothing, right? Because look at Erika, her husband, she's all caught up into this scandal that her husband has, and now she has to rebuild her life all over again. Same thing with Dorit. Well, he's not in a scandal, but I don't know how well he did with money, because I see money funny, he's not providing. At least that's what she said. She said that he's not providing. So, and here's my other thing about Dorit, because in the after show, she claims that she was a businesswoman before she met PK. And PK was the one who filed for bankruptcy shortly after they met. Now, I think I have read somewhere where he did file for bankruptcy. But here's my thing. If you have all this business experience like you say you do, where you built brands and so forth, first of all, why didn't your Beach Body Company take off when you premiered that on the show? But not only that, why were you earlier in the season when you met with Bowles and Amanda sitting there trying to act like you didn't know what your next steps were? Now, granted, you still got to take time to figure that out. But if you're somebody that's experienced in business, it should come a little bit easier, right? Maybe it's just a matter of you brainstorming, but you acted like you didn't have a clue. So I don't know about Dorit sometimes. It's like, it's hard to always believe it, because even on the last after show, talked about how PK claims he wants all this, custody and all that. They go through mediation, and then he doesn't even show up for half the time. Now, is it possible that PK flaked out? Maybe. It's possible, because she does have the kids most of the time. But the only thing I'm saying with Dorit is like she got to make sure she have her receipts, so she can prove that PK didn't show up the way she has. But I don't know. I think my problem with Dorit is that sometimes she exaggerates a bit, so it's kind of hard to take her seriously. And then let's go back to Amanda bragging, right? Yes, when Amanda does it, it comes off as very obnoxious. But if we're going to be honest, she wasn't the only one that's like that. Let's not forget there was a time where Erika and Dorit were both very flamboyant about their lifestyles, right? Erika, during her first season, I remember her confessional. She was all bragging about. She was like, "Yeah, we just got this painting. It cost $1 million." And then she talked about the type of jets that they had. She was like, "Yeah, we take the big plane when we're doing international flights, and we take the smaller plane when we're doing domestic flights." And let's not forget, her whole motto was, "It's expensive to be me." Right? She made a whole brand about how expensive she is. But people let it go because she had this pretty out of the box, personality or whatever. People were intrigued by it, but they let it go. But she too used to brag, okay? And let's not forget how Dorit used to go outside, Gucci down to the socks, okay? Everything she had on was designer. And she made the comment in the after show about Amanda shouldn't have to feel like she should put women down to lift herself up, which is true. But let's not forget, last season, Dorit was the same person at the reunion who put Sutton down because Sutton lived off a main road. Remember that? Mind you, she's making this comment even though she don't even know if her mortgage is getting paid, which means that she could have been living on a road. But hey, that's neither here nor there, I guess. So we got to remember, they all have their moments where they brag now. The only reason Erika and Dorit don't brag like that because life has humbled them real bad. So let's not forget, who we used to be before we end up in the circumstances we are now. Now, I will say this too, because they also have a point where Amanda's concerned. I appreciate the fact that Amanda's living this happy life now, and everything is going well and great for her, but she has to be careful because right now she's being a little cocky about the fact that she's so successful, and she has a great marriage. Here's the thing: anything can happen at any moment. You might be living great now, and then who's to say what happens 2 years down the line? So you got to be careful about how much you brag about how well you're doing because life can sometimes humble you, and you just never know what situation you're going to be in. So I think she needs to be careful about going around bragging. Like, it's okay to say I'm successful, but it don't have to be the top of your discussion like every 5 minutes, okay? So there's Amanda. Now let's get into Sutton because each cast member keeps talking about how much Sutton has changed. Oh, so she's much better now. She's much better now. She's much more relatable, easier to talk to. Let's be real for a second. Sutton didn't really change. Sutton had no choice but to act differently because Garcelle is no longer around to have her back. Think about it. Right? So it's kind of hard for her to go around picking fights when she don't have anybody to back her up now. So really, Sutton had no choice but to change in order to fit in with the group and secure her spot with the group. She can't afford to pick fights when she out there on the island by herself. So that's the only reason Sutton is different. Let's be clear. Sutton is still the same person that thinks it's all about her. Let's go back to her argument with Jennifer Tilly. Jennifer told her twice that she hurt her feelings with the way she was talking to her. And not one time did not one time did Sutton apologize to her, right? If anything, Sutton kept flipping it around and making it all about the comment about that just Jennifer made about Garcelle, right? She took no accountability for how she treated Jennifer. So let's not forget, she ain't really changed. And if you pay attention to her sometimes, there are times when she's holding back when she really wants to say something. Like even when she's having dinner with Denise and Erika, you can tell she had comments, but she was just holding back. So just give Sutton some time. I feel like the real Sutton will come back out at some point. But right now, she's trying to keep her cool so she can stay in with the group. Can I just say that I stand Rachel Zoe? Okay, Rachel Zoe is my kind of girl, okay? She's fabulous, she's stylish, but more important, she knows how to party. I'm like Rachel. When I go out, I like to stay on the floor. You can be boring at home. So I like Rachel. I like seeing her have fun. And not only that, I'm glad that she actually invited Dorit and Kyle to go on a trip with her because I feel like she reminded them how fun they both used to be because I feel like they both have good points where the other one is concerned. If we're being honest, Kyle has become very reserved ever since she's separated from Mo. I mean, it's one thing to stop drinking, but just because you stop drinking doesn't mean that you can't still have fun, right? Kyle used to be the life of the party. Kyle used to do all the splits and all of those things, and she used to be a lot more fun. And I would think that now that she's single again, that she would take this opportunity to just kind of live her best life. Now, granted, I'm sure she had a moment where she was down about her marriage, but girl, live. So it would be nice to see Kyle get back to that lighthearted spirit that she used to be. And, I guess the same thing goes for Dorit. She also has changed. Like, she has become ultra sensitive when people try to make comments about her. Like, she gets very defensive about her marriage and things like that. She just wants people. But if I'm being honest, maybe they need each other more than they realize. And they're both too stubborn to admit it. Because I think, they're both going through a hard time. And it would be nice if they both just resign to the fact, like, hey, we're going through a rough patch in our lives. Why don't we lean on each other and just start back having fun like you used to? And I think if they lean on each other and supported each other and have fun again, I think maybe things could be a little bit lighter for them. Obviously, it's not going to erase their problems, but it can make things a little bit easier where they're concerned. And then let's talk about Erika. Who would have thought? We all knew what was going on with Denise. And if we're going to be fair, I saw the red flags. Like I always felt like Aaron was a little bit off to me. Like I too remember that episode when he was like pulling her on when they was leaving Kyle's house, and it was just the way he was pulling her, and she kept reminding him that the cameras are on because she wanted him to be mindful about what he said, instead of him saying he was smashing her hand. Like, and then to top it off, it's like, girl, not only was he abusing you, but like you paid for everything because she was sponsoring the house and paying for his family to live in the other house while they rented. It's like she's gone through a lot. So I think Denise just needs to take a breather from men for a minute because you went from Charlie Sheen to him, and like neither one of those could have been easy. But then to find out at the dinner that Erika also recently, not even in the past, we talking about recently, had an abusive encounter. I'm not going to judge her because like we don't know what's really going on behind the scenes and we don't know what it's like in those moments. But I'm just going to say that I'm really grateful that she got out of it, and she escaped danger because there's no telling how bad it could have gotten if she would have stayed in that relationship. So I'm just really glad that she had the courage to just walk away. I mean, we see Erika as a strong woman, so if it could happen to Erika, I guess it could happen to anybody. You just never know like who you're meeting nowadays. 'Cause everybody presents themselves as the best person possible, and then sometimes you don't really know who you're dealing with until time passes, and maybe that's what happened with her. So I'm just grateful that she got out of it. And here's another thing I found interesting in the after show. In the latter part of the after show, there's set changes, right? But I noticed that Amanda was filming by herself. She wasn't with any of the cast members. So it makes me wonder if there was a big blow up that happens that isolates her from the rest of the group. So I did catch that. So I'm just wondering what's going to come out from that. So I guess we'll just have to stay tuned and watch. And remember, if you like this content, make sure to like and subscribe for more goodies. Thanks.